What's up, YouTube? This is Gman coming at you. I was just watching the State of the Nation address by Ken Ham from Answers in Genesis. So I was just looking at the website and I found a very interesting list. It's a long list of scientists that believe in the biblical account of creation. And the name of this list is called Modern Scientists Who Accept the Biblical Account of Creation. Now, here's a special bonus. What I'm also going to do for you is play a very special video that I found from archive.org. It's a site where you can get free public domain videos that you can use for anything you want. And I'm fixing to show you a very interesting video of some science, some actual science that they were able to perform on some dogs back in the 1930s. I believe it was 1938. Also, let me apologize just real quick. These images that I'm about to show you, they might be just a bit graphic. So here we go. Dr. William Arion in biochemistry and chemistry. Dr. Paul Ackerman, psychologist. Dr. E. Theo Agard, medical physics. Dr. Steve Austin, geologist. Dr. S.E. Ah, biochemist. Dr. Thomas Barnes, physicist. Dr. Geoff Bernard, immunologist. Dr. Don Patton, plant physiologist. Dr. John Baumgardner, electrical engineer, space physicist, geophysicist, expert in supercomputer modeling of plate tectonics. Dr. Jerry Bergman, psychologist. Dr. Kimberly Barron, microbiology and immunology. Professor Vladimir Bettina, microbiology, biochemistry, and biology. Dr. Andrew Besanquet, biology, microbiology. Edward A. Boudreau, theoretical chemistry. Dr. David R. Boylan, chemical engineer. Professor Lynn E. Carruthers, associate professor of statistics. Dr. Rob Carter, marine biology. Dr. David Catchpool, plant physiology. Professor Sung Do Cha, physics. Dr. Eugene F. Chapin, professor of physics. Dr. Chung Kook Chang, genetic engineering. Professor June Seek Chang, aeronautical engineering. Dr. Donald Chittick, physical chemist. Professor Chung Il Cho, biology education. Dr. John M. Kim Simbala, mechanical engineering. Dr. Harold Coffin, paleontologist. Dr. Bob Compton, DVM. Dr. Ken Cummings, biologist. Dr. Jack W. Cuozzo, dentist. Dr. William M. Curtis III, theology, doctrine of theology, THM, MS, aeronautics and nuclear physics. Doctorate in theology, master's in theology, and MS, which means master's MS, something like that, yeah. Dr. Malcolm Cutchins, aerospace engineering. Dr. Lionel Dahmer, analytical chemist. Dr. Raymond V. Damadian, MD, pioneer of magnetic resonance imaging. Dr. Chris Darnbro, biochemist. Dr. Nancy M. Darrell, botany. Dr. Brian Dawson, mathematics. Dr. Douglas Dean, biological chemistry. Professor Stephen W. Deckard, assistant professor of education. Dr. David A. Dewitt, biology, chemistry, biochemistry, neuroscience. Dr. Don D. Young, astronomy, atmospheric physics, M division. Dr. Geoff Downs, creationist plant physiologist. Dr. Ted Driggers, operations research. Robert H. Eckel, medical research. Dr. Andre Egan, geneticist. Dr. Dudley Eric, molecular biologist. Professor Dennis L. England, professor of geophysics. Dr. Andrew J. Fabik, microbiology. Professor Danny Faulkner, astronomy. Professor Carl B. Fleermans, professor of biology. Professor Dwayne L. Ford, organic chemistry. Professor Robert H. Franks, associate professor of biology. Dr. Alan Galbraith, watershed science. Dr. Paul Gam, medical research. Dr. Maciej Giertych, geneticist. Dr. Dwayne Geesh, biochemist. Dr. Werner Geet, information scientist. Dr. Warwick Glover, general surgeon. Dr. D.B. Gower, biochemistry. Dr. Robin Greer, chemist, history. Dr. Stephen Grocott, chemist. Dr. Vicky Hagerman, DMV. Dr. Donald Heyman, food scientist. Dr. Barry Harker, philosopher. Dr. Charles W. Harrison, applied physicist, electromagnetics. Dr. John Hartnett, physics. Dr. Mark Harwood, engineering, satellite specialist. Dr. George Hawk, environmental science. Dr. Margaret Helder, science editor, botanist. Dr. Harold R. engineer. Dr. Harold R. Henry, he's an engineer. Dr. Jonathan Henry, astronomy. Dr. Joseph Henson, entomologist. Dr. Robert A. Herman, professor of mathematics, U.S. Naval Academy. Dr. Andrew Hodge, head of the cardiothoracic surgical service. Dr. Kelly Hollowell, molecular and cellular pharmacologist. Dr. Ed Holroyd III, atmospheric science. Dr. Bob Hoskin, biochemistry. Dr. George F. Howe, botany. Dr. Neil Huber, physical anthropologist. Dr. James A. Huggins, professor and chair, Department of Biology. Dr. Russ Humphreys, physics. Evan Jamieson, hydrometallurgy. George T. Havor, biochemistry. Dr. Pierre Hurlstrom, molecular biology. Dr. Arthur Jones, biology. Dr. Jonathan W. Jones, plastic surgeon. Dr. Raymond Jones, agricultural scientist. Professor Leonid Korochkin, molecular biology. Dr. Valerie Karpunin, mathematical sciences, logics, formal logics. Dr. Dean Kenyon, biologist. Professor Guy Tai Kim, biology. Professor Harriet Kim, biochemistry. Professor Zhang Bai Kim, biochemistry. Professor Jung Han Kim, biochemistry. Professor Jung Wook Kim, environmental science. Professor Kyung Rai Kim, analytical chemistry. Professor Kyung Tai Kim, genetic engineering. Professor Young Gil Kim, material science. Professor Young In Kim, engineering. Dr. John W. Klotz, biologist. Dr. Vladimir F. Kondalenko, cytology, cell pathology. Dr. Leonid Korochkin, MD, genetics, molecular biology, neurobiology. Dr. John K.G. Kramer, biochemistry. Dr. Johann Kruger, zoology. Professor Jin Hyuk Kwan, physics. Professor Myung Sang Kwan, immunology. So, all those names that we just named, that's a really long list. But the list that I was reading from is so long that what I just read, it's not even half of it. It's not even half. There are so many more names. I could have sat here for another 10 or 15 minutes reading them off. So, go check it out yourself. The link is going to be over in the sidebar, so go check it out.